Nobody expected this showdown. The bright lights of the CNN studio burned hot as producers whispered frantically into earpieces. News banners flashed across screens. Breaking. Kinzinger demands live debate with VP J.D. Vance. Adam Kinzinger, wearing a crisp suit but eyes blazing, pointed straight into the camera. His voice trembled with barely contained rage. J.D. Vance, you've betrayed the very people who trusted you. Face me, right now. Tell America who you really are. People watching at home sat frozen. Mothers stopped washing dishes. Old men leaned closer to their radios. Teenagers dropped their phones in shock. A producer whispered, "We've reached Vance's office. He's on his way." Minutes later, a hush fell over the room as J.D. Vance, Vice President of the United States, stepped onto the set. His calm presence felt like a shield against the storm. He smiled politely at Kinzinger. "Adam, I'm here. Let's talk. But remember, truth cuts deeper than anger." Viewers held their breath. No one knew that tonight would change not only two men, but the entire Republican Party. The battle had just begun. J.D. Vance adjusted his tie as he sat across from Kinzinger. The table between them seemed to vanish under the heat of their stare. The anchor tried to keep order. Her voice quivered. "Gentlemen, please, one at a time." But Kinzinger slammed his hand on the table. "J.D., you pretend to be for working Americans, but you're silent when your friends in power hurt them. You've traded honesty for ambition." The words cut like glass. People watching gasped. One woman in Ohio whispered, "My God, is he right?" J.D. leaned forward, his voice low but steady. "Adam, I grew up in Middletown, Ohio. I saw factories close. I saw kids cry when their dads lost their jobs. Don't tell me I don't care. I've bled for these people." Kinzinger's face tightened. Tears shimmered in his eyes. For a split second, he seemed like a man carrying the weight of the entire nation on his back. "Then prove it," he demanded, voice cracking. "Debate me. Here. Now." The anchor tried to speak, but the room drowned in silence. Millions stared at their screens, pulse racing. The debate was on. The cameras rolled as J.D. Vance took a shaky breath. For a moment, he seemed smaller than the towering figure who'd campaigned across America. Kinzinger leaned in, whispering so only the microphones could catch it. "You've sold out your soul, J.D. Admit it." J.D. swallowed hard. He stared at his reflection in the studio lights. Then, voice trembling, he began speaking, not like a politician, but like a man laying his heart bare. "My mom was an addict. My family was broken. I know what it's like to feel forgotten. I know what it's like to be told you'll never be more than the trailer park you were born in." Tears glistened in J.D.'s eyes. A hush fell over the studio. Viewers at home felt a sudden ache in their chests. "I've made choices, yes. I've tried to protect this country, even when it meant shaking hands I didn't want to shake. Because sometimes, Adam, the people need someone on the inside." Kinzinger blinked rapidly, struggling to find words. The audience could see the pain behind both men's eyes. But J.D. wasn't finished. "And there's something else I need to say to you, Adam. Something that will end this debate once and for all." The anchor gasped. The music swelled. The screen faded to commercial. Millions were left crying and desperate to hear what J.D. would say next. The cameras blinked back from commercial. J.D. Vance sat silent, staring at his hands. His wedding ring glinted under the studio lights. Adam Kinzinger broke the silence. "You talk about your childhood, J.D., but what about now? You're vice president. You have power. Why not speak up for the truth?" J.D. lifted his eyes, pain swimming in them. "You think I don't want to? Every night I go home and remember my grandma's voice telling me, 'Don't ever be afraid to speak the truth, even if your voice shakes.'" Kinzinger looked thrown. J.D. reached into his pocket and pulled out an old folded piece of paper. His hands trembled as he unfolded it. This was my grandma's letter. She wrote it the day I left for the Marines. She begged me never to forget who I was. Tears dripped onto the paper. The audience fell deathly still. Adam, there's truth. And then there's the cost of truth. Sometimes it breaks families. Sometimes it breaks nations. Kinzinger clenched his jaw. The anchor whispered, "What? What does the letter say, Mr. Vice President?" J.D. inhaled, ready to read. J.D. held the letter close, as if drawing strength from the paper itself. The room felt smaller, like the entire world was leaning in. This is what my grandma wrote. If you have to stand alone, stand anyway. God didn't make you for silence. He made you to fight for those who can't fight for themselves. His voice cracked. People watching at home felt their eyes burn with tears. I've tried to live by those words, even when people hated me for it. Kinzinger softened for the first time. He wiped his eyes roughly, fighting back tears. Then why do you stay silent about what's happening to the country? J.D. closed his eyes. His voice dropped to a whisper. Because sometimes the only way to protect people is to keep certain battles private. I've been working behind closed doors to stop things you don't even know about. Kinzinger leaned closer, eyes sharp. Then say it. Tell America right now. What are you hiding? The anchor held her breath. J.D. opened his eyes, glistening with tears. Adam, there's one truth that will tear this country apart if I say it out loud. J.D.'s chest rose and fell as he wrestled with his next words. His voice dropped so low that viewers leaned closer to their screens, afraid to miss a syllable. Adam, I know who's been secretly funding the chaos tearing this country apart. And it's not who the American people think. Kinzinger froze, as if slapped. The anchor's pen fell from her fingers and clattered on the desk. Who, J.D.? Who? Adam demanded, eyes wide. J.D.'s lips parted, but no words came out. He gripped the table, knuckles white. A tear slipped down his cheek. If I say it, people will lose faith in everything. Churches, communities, families. It will all come crashing down. Kinzinger whispered. Then you're no better than those you accuse. You're choosing silence. J.D. turned to him, voice fierce through the tears. I'm choosing to keep this country from civil war. The studio gasped. The anchor choked out. Mr. Vice President, the American people deserve to know. J.D. stared at the camera, eyes wet, breathing hard. Maybe they do, and maybe I'm done protecting secrets. A digital countdown clock appeared on the screen for next segment in 60 seconds. Millions of viewers sobbed and screamed at their TVs for him to speak. The countdown clock hit 0. The cameras blinked back on. J.D. Vance sat rigid in his chair. His eyes seemed older, as if carrying the weight of the entire country. Adam Kinzinger's voice sliced through the silence. J.D., Americans are watching. Who's funding the chaos? Tell us the name. J.D. looked at the anchor, then at the camera, his lips trembling. Adam, if I say this name, people will feel like the ground beneath them cracked open. And I don't want children to feel afraid of their own neighbors. Tears rolled down his cheeks. Viewers at home wept too. Mothers held their kids tighter. Old veterans clenched their jaws, remembering times when secrets tore America apart. Kinzinger's voice broke. Don't you think we're already afraid, J.D.? We deserve the truth. J.D. exhaled, shaking. This isn't about left or right. It's about people who want us fighting so they can get richer while families starve. Kinzinger slammed his fist on the table. Who, J.D., who? J.D. closed his eyes. A single name hovered on his lips, but he couldn't speak it. The anchor whispered, Mr. Vice President, say it. J.D.'s hand gripped the letter from his grandma so tightly it crinkled. He blinked rapidly, trying to steady himself. Adam, you're right. The country's falling apart. People hate each other. But exposing this name right now could cause riots. People could die. A sob slipped from his throat. The audience felt their hearts shatter. Adam leaned forward, voice low. And if you don't say it, you'll be remembered as the man who kept America in the dark. JD's shoulders shook. You think I haven't tried to stop them? You think I haven't fought behind closed doors? Kinzinger's eyes glistened with tears. I know you have, JD, but secrets are killing us. JD whispered, I've been trying to keep families safe. I've taken meetings in hidden rooms. I've had to shake hands with people who disgust me, because I thought I could protect the country without blowing it up. His voice quivered like glass. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe the only way forward is through the fire. The anchor gasped, hand to her mouth. JD, will you tell America the truth? JD took a deep breath. JD's lips parted. The entire studio seemed to stop breathing. Adam, the person funding this chaos, is someone who's been hailed as a hero of democracy. Someone who sits at tables you and I have both sat at. Kinzinger blinked, stunned. Who? JD. Who? JD clenched his fists. A tear slipped down his cheek. He stared into the camera, as if speaking directly to every American watching. The man behind so much of this is Senator Lawrence Price. The anchor screamed, "Oh my God!" Adam staggered back in his chair, pale as a ghost. That's impossible. He's the face of reform. People love him. JD's voice turned cold. He's also been funneling millions through shell companies to groups spreading fear and division. Also, he can grab power while Americans tear each other apart. Social media exploded. Phones buzzed. Hashtags trended. Vance Kinzinger, JD Truth Bomb. The anchor whispered, Mr. Vice President, do you have proof? JD reached into his jacket and pulled out a flash drive. Yes, and I'm done hiding it. JD held up the flash drive, his hand trembling so hard it rattled against his wedding ring. Everything's on here, Adam. Bank records, emails, videos, proof that Senator Lawrence Price is funding the chaos to divide America and rise to power. Kinzinger stared in shock, his face drained of color. Price is loved by millions. He's a war hero. He saved lives in Afghanistan. JD's voice broke. That's what makes it so devastating. People believe in him. They trust him. And he's using that trust like a weapon. Viewers at home screamed at their TVs. A woman in Kentucky collapsed into sobs, remembering her son who served under Price overseas. Kinzinger ran a shaking hand through his hair. JD, if you drop this bombshell, you'll tear the country apart. JD wiped a tear away. Or maybe, I'll save it. The anchor whispered, voice barely steady. Are you gonna play what's on that drive right now? JD looked into the camera, his eyes shining with unshed tears. America deserves the truth, no matter how much it hurts. Social media went into meltdown. JD Truth trended worldwide. Producers rushed around the studio like ants. The anchor shouted into her earpiece. We've got 20 seconds until the next break. Do we air the video or not? JD slammed the flash drive on the desk. Play it. Let the country see the truth. Kinzinger grabbed his arm. JD, think of your kids. Think of the riots that could start. JD looked at him, eyes filled with agony. I am thinking of my kids. I'm thinking of all the kids who deserve a country that's honest. 10 seconds left. The anchor trembled. Mr. Vice President, if we air this, we might all lose our jobs. We might get threats. We might cause violence. JD's voice was soft but unbreakable. Then let them come for me. I've been running my whole life from people who said I wasn't good enough. No more. The clock hit 0. "Roll the tape," JD whispered. Millions of viewers cried as the screen faded to black and new images began to appear. The video flickered to life. A secret recording played across every screen in America. Senator Lawrence Price was in a dark boardroom surrounded by wealthy donors. His voice was icy. "The more Americans fight each other, the more they'll beg for a hero. And I'll be waiting to step in. That's how we control them. Through fear." Gasps echoed through the studio. JD buried his face in his hands, sobbing quietly. "I prayed this day would never come," he choked out. The camera panned to show piles of documents. Bank wires, secret slush funds, names of groups blamed for riots, all traced back to Price. Viewers everywhere screamed. A trucker in Indiana slammed his brakes, crying so hard he couldn't drive. A nurse in Georgia dropped to her knees, sobbing into her scrubs. Kinzinger whispered, "JD, you were right, all along." JD lifted his tear-streaked face. "I didn't want to destroy people's faith. But the real betrayal is staying silent." The anchor turned to the camera, her voice trembling. "Ladies and gentlemen, America has just witnessed history." The feed cut back to JD, who took a shaky breath. "And I'm not done yet." The video finished playing. The studio fell utterly silent. Even the cameras seemed hesitant to zoom in. JD wiped his eyes, voice barely above a whisper. "I loved this country enough to keep secrets. But I love it even more to tell the truth." Outside, reports rolled in of people crying in their living rooms. One woman called into the studio live, sobbing so hard she could barely speak. "JD, my husband served with Senator Price. How do I tell him this? How do I tell my kids their hero is a lie?" JD's eyes glistened as he spoke into the camera. "Ma'am, I can't take away your pain. But the only way to heal this country is to shine light into the darkness, even if it breaks our hearts." Adam Kinzinger put a hand over his mouth, choking back tears. "JD, you risked everything for the truth, even your career." JD gave a sad smile. "My career means nothing if I can't look my kids in the eye." Suddenly, a voice boomed from offstage. "We have breaking news. Senator Price has just been arrested." Viewers screamed. The anchor's jaw dropped. Phones across America buzzed with the news alert. "Senator Price arrested in Washington, D.C." The anchor struggled to speak as she read the teleprompter. "The Justice Department confirms multiple charges including conspiracy, fraud, and inciting domestic unrest." JD slumped forward, burying his face in his hands. His shoulders shook as silent sobs racked his body. Kinzinger leaned close. "JD, you did this. You saved us." JD looked up, eyes swollen from crying. "I just broke America's heart. I feel like I tore the flag in two." The anchor gently touched his arm. "No, Mr. Vice President. Sometimes the only way to save the country is to break the lies." A hush fell over the studio. Viewers at home wept openly. Parents held their children tight, not knowing what kind of country would greet them tomorrow. Kinzinger whispered, "I came here to destroy you tonight. But I've never respected anyone more than I respect you right now." JD squeezed his eyes shut. "Adam, I wish the price of truth didn't hurt so many innocent people." The anchor leaned in. "Mr. Vice President, will you stay on as Vice President after this?" JD opened his mouth to answer, but the screen flickered black. The cameras snapped back on. JD stared into the lens, his voice hoarse from crying. "America deserves a vice president who can keep fighting, and I'm not walking away." The studio erupted in applause. Kinzinger blinked away fresh tears, then stood and pulled JD into a tight hug. "I came here to expose you, but instead, you exposed the truth." JD managed a faint, watery smile. You wanted a showdown? Turns out, we both love this country enough to bleed for it. People across the country were sobbing so hard they couldn't speak. Elderly veterans saluted their TVs. Kids hugged their parents, sensing something historic had happened. The anchor's voice trembled. Mr. Vice President, what's next for America? JD straightened, strength returning to his posture. Now we heal, we rebuild trust, and we remember that the real enemy is the lies that divide us, not each other. The anchor whispered, "And what about you, JD?" JD took a deep breath, wiping away a final tear. "I'm ready to fight for this country until my last breath. I won't let my grandma's words die with me." The screen faded as emotional music swelled. The studio lights glared down on J.D. Vance as the applause faded. His chest heaved with shaky breaths. Kinzinger leaned in, eyes still red from crying. "J.D., is there anything else you're hiding? Anything America needs to know?" J.D. stared at the floor for several seconds. The silence seemed to stretch forever. Finally, he whispered, "There's one last thing. A reason why I kept fighting, even when people called me a traitor." The anchor frowned gently. "What is it, Mr. Vice President?" J.D. swallowed, his voice trembling. "Last year, I was diagnosed with a heart condition. I've been told I might not have many years left." Gasps shot through the studio. Kinzinger's hand flew to his mouth. The anchor's eyes filled with tears. J.D. blinked rapidly, fighting emotion. "So every day I wake up thinking, what can I do before my time runs out? To leave this country better for my kids. That's why I couldn't stay silent anymore." The anchor sobbed openly. Viewers at home were weeping. A farmer in Iowa turned off his tractor, wiping tears on his shirt sleeve. J.D. exhaled. "I'm not afraid to die. I'm afraid of leaving lies behind." The anchor wiped her eyes, trying to steady her voice. "Mr. Vice President, you've just changed the country forever. But how do we heal from this?" J.D. looked directly into the camera. "We start by talking to each other again, not screaming, not calling each other monsters. We remember we're neighbors before we're Democrats or Republicans." The audience burst into tears. Kinzinger nodded slowly. "I was so sure you'd sold out, J.D., but I see now. You've been carrying this country on your shoulders." J.D. offered a soft smile. "I'm just a kid from Middletown, Ohio, who wants America to be the place my grandma believed in." People watching at home hugged each other. A young girl in Texas whispered, "I want to be like J.D. Vance." The anchor whispered, "What do you say to Americans who feel betrayed?" J.D. leaned forward. "I say, don't give up on this country. Because as long as we're breathing, we can fix what's broken." Thunderous applause shook the studio. Tears fell like rain. Outside, car horns honked in celebration. Flags waved in front yards. America had been wounded, but it felt like it might finally start to heal. The studio fell quiet one last time. J.D. Vance's voice grew stronger. "Adam, you asked me for one sentence that explains everything." Adam leaned closer. "Yes. What is it?" J.D. looked into the camera, his eyes shining with tears. "The truth is, America is worth every sacrifice, even if it breaks your heart." The words hung in the air like thunder. Adam covered his face and wept. The anchor sobbed into her notes. Social media exploded with messages of hope. Vance McDrop rocketed to the top of trending hashtags. People across America cried, not just from sadness, but from feeling like maybe, just maybe, the country still had good people left fighting for it. J.D. stood up, voice firm. "And now, it's your turn, America. Don't let the darkness win. Stand up, speak the truth, love each other. That's how we save this country." The crowd rose to its feet in thunderous applause. J.D. waved gently, tears rolling down his cheeks. "God bless you all, and God bless the United States of America. Hey friends, if this story moved you even half as much as it moved us, please smash that like button right now. Subscribe so you never miss another powerful story that speaks the truth. And drop a comment below. What sacrifice would you make for America? Let's flood this video with hope and prove that honesty and courage can still change the world.